All right, Greg. So we're recording and we got a good one today. So today, everyone, we are talking about a few things. We're talking about ducks and platypi, a platypus, headlights, and a whole bunch of other things. And let me just start off by explaining what I mean by this. If you've ever heard the saying, it if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, and acts like a duck, whatever, it's a duck. Well, there's also something that's very similar to a duck. And if you're not familiar with this, you can go down the internet rabbit hole after this episode. But it's something called a platypus, which a lot of people don't even know when you talk about it that it's a real actual animal. I think they've seen it in like a cartoon or something. They're like, wait, a
Mm.
platypus is real. But the idea is the duck and the platypus have a lot of similarities. They both have broad, flat bills. They have webbed feet. They're semi-aquatic. They live in and around the water. They're excellent swimmers. They both lay eggs, which is actually extremely rare for mammals. But they kind of look similar. They act similar. They talk similar. But the key difference is that a platypus has venomous spurs on its hind legs, and now they're kind of used for, yes, they can be used for defense and things like that. They're toxic. They're actually used for reproduction, almost like a roofie type situation there. But there's other uses for it. But if you get stung by those, it could really hurt you. And if like you're a little kid or something like that, it probably could kill you. So the point is, not everything is a duck that looks and walks and talks like a duck. And so that's sort of my preface right there about that. I'll get into why we're talking about that in a minute. But we're also talking about headlights today. There's sometimes we outrun our headlights, if you've ever heard that, meaning you're driving faster than what you can see. And then sometimes we completely forget to turn the headlights on, and we're driving blind in the dark. And so, what I'm getting with these analogies, and we're going to jump into a couple cases and explain what we mean, is that it's a big thing we talk about is people often mistake a duck, thinking it's a duck and it's actually a platypus, or the opposite, where they're like, oh man, that's a platypus, it's going to sting us, and it's really just a duck. And sometimes there's kind of opposite ends of the spectrum where we're go 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 go, we're onto something, and we're start outrunning our headlights, and we miss really important things. And then sometimes, obviously, we forget to turn them on at night, and we're driving blind in the dark, and so we're going to hit something, we're going to run into something. And so those are the kind of two main topics, Greg: the duck platypus analogy, and then the our headlights. So I'll throw to you to kind of set up the story and some of the examples we're going to use. But this is something that's common, all the time. This is everything that we talk about, basically, summed up in headlights and ducks and platypus. So I'll let you kind of be the one to set up the story and make sense of what the hell is Brian talking about today.
So a couple of things. First of all, if we use the beginning of this, I think we could get an involuntary commitment for Brian. If we gave no context and just had you
Yeah,
blabbering about ducks and
you,
platypi,
you,
that's hilarious,
well,
by the way.
that's not hard to get involuntary
Oh,
commitment.
no,
And
no,
anytime you just have me talk to a mental health professional, they're
exactly.
immediately hitting the red button,
Just
cancel my
under the
afternoon
table.
calls. So
So, and
yeah,
our good friend, our ground branch guy from New Zealand, Jason Jones, if you're listening, spent a lot of time in Australia and New Zealand, says that platypus tastes just like chicken. And also, you brought up toxic reproduction, which in fact is under my photo in my high school
that's
yearbook. You
that's.
know what I'm
I was
saying?
gonna
Uh,
say there's a
I'm
lot of
like,
people who are the product of toxic reproduction.
and we're out. You know what I mean? And the call's over. No, so look, uh, uh, those of you that are our listeners that were lucky enough to visit the Powderhorn Guest Ranch, and you came in on the road to the middle of nowhere, which was just beautiful in the primitive wilderness and everything. You remember passing Reese Tree. It was a huge old willow that grows by the Savoya on a dirt road to nowhere. I mean, there's only a couple of ranches back there on that road, and there's huge scarring on the tree from people hitting it. And so, based on my own research and the research of the people that lived in the valley, and why it was named after Reese, is what happened is people at night would outrun their headlights. You're on a dirt road, you're getting to go real good at a clip, you know the road by heart, and then all of a sudden something steps out in front of the car, or you get into a little bit of a skid and overcorrect, and you don't want to go into the river, which is on your right side, and you don't want to go into the mountain, which is on your left side. So guess what? You perdork a tree. And what happens is we all do that. Look, think of the beginning of Star Wars, not Star Wars, Star Trek. Uhura, she was my favorite. Oh my God, the masturbatory fantasies. But I want you to think of being driving, and all of a sudden the snow is coming at you, and you make the mistake at night of turning on the high beams. And when you turn on the high beams, all of a sudden it becomes overwhelming and you can't see shit through your front windshield because the snow is taking everything. Well, that's what happens to your mind. Your mind gets clouded, and all of a sudden you're driving, and then you go a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and you think, oh my God, I have to get there. I have to get there right now. It's important. Well, here's two capers, Brian, that we can talk about today that both talk about outrunning your headlights, and it can be fatal. And both of them deal with the platypus. So the first one briefly, and folks, do your homework. It's in the story details, and Brian will have all the links set up for you. The first one is very simple. There's a female going down the freeway that's bleeding. Somebody calls EMS. EMS shows up. Sure enough, disoriented female walking in the median. They know nothing. They know nothing about it, but it looks a lot like a duck, and the duck is bleeding. So they get her into the back of the rig, and while she's in the back of the rig with the paramedic, she pulls out a knife and stabs the paramedic fatally. He ends up dying on the way to the hospital. Nothing they could do. Not only that, but jumps out of the back of the rig and tries to
Jeez.
steal the vehicle. So she's overpowered by a couple of coppers and other firemen. Listen, that copper that saved the vehicle couldn't save that paramedic. Why? Because God, Buddha, Vishnu, Allah put these things out in the open for us. And guess what? They're covered. They look like a duck. It's just another call, Brian. It's just a female in distress. What they didn't know is that she had just bonded out for an assault on a copper a day before that, and that she had a violent and unpredictable history. So here, a guy doing his job encounters the platypus, and this sting was vital. Okay, now hold that in your mind for just a second, then we can break these down. Second story, copper's doing his job. Copper, and it doesn't matter, male, female, I don't give a shit about those things. Think about the story and think about the heart of the story. And you can always look it up and dig deeper on your own. But Copper sees a sled go by and says, those windows are illegal tinted. That's great. That's great because a Copper is interested and wants to look at their environment, and as being curious, picks this car out, and now it's a legitimate stop. It's a legal stop. On the stop goes, this guy's acting squirrely, and I'm getting the information through my senses, my five senses, that there might be drugs on board. Now, based on my experience, that means at this point I call two people. I call window tint guy to confirm the tint so I can write the ticket, and I call dog boy so dog boy can bring the dog by and see if the dog hits on it. Sure enough, dog hits on it. Long story short, do your homework. They captured a guy. He's got narcotic paraphernalia in the car. Further search determines that he's got two types of drugs on him. Then they get him back, and he makes some res gestae statements, and they get a search warrant based on his interview and interrogation. And you guys know what I'm talking about. That street interview, res gestae statements, go a little deeper. Now he's in custody. He's not free to leave. He makes statements that are protected. That's what the whole caper was about. And they execute a search warrant on his house. Brian, they get gun components, and they get more drugs, and they get all this other stuff. Great caper. But this guy started out looking like a platypus. And once they had him in custody, he looked like a duck. No further information needed, buddy. He's fine. Guess what they do when they get to the jail? They pat him down, and he's got meth and some other drugs with him, and he's got a loaded gun. Headlights in both. Pump your brakes once in a while, because if you're outrunning your headlights and it looks too much like a duck, you're going to relax too soon, and that could be fatal. In both instances, you had people doing their job, and they were doing it well, Brian. But what happened is now on this caper with the tinted windows, do you see how the entropy and the centripetal force and the third law of thermodynamics are starting to pull in the second and third on this one? And all of a sudden, what happens is you're going, fuck, we're hitting pardon my language, you're hitting batting 1,000, and then what happens? Some guy up in the jail goes, hey, what about the bag of dope and the loaded gun? That could have been a fatal sting too. So simply put, and I apologize for the rant, we sometimes get into misadventure And those misadventure can be fatal because we don't consider the entire picture of what we may be facing. Over.
And these are two, kind of examples of one sort of outrunning the headlights, right?
Yep.
Or you're already got a search warrant and searching his place, and this guy hasn't even been properly searched yet. And then the other one obviously being the, never even shined a light on it, never even thought of this, never turned the headlights on to see if this could potentially, what this could potentially be. And so, they're good cases for comparison, and here's why. Too. First of all, with the paramedic fireman shows up, like that's they're coming from this, and we've got plenty of folks that have reached out to us from different agencies. And shout out to the distinguished Savage Walt, who is I think 3 decades in EMS and is a first responder, and but it's you're going in there. Going, I'm here to care for someone. I'm here to do this. Like you're not coming in from the same perspective as like the law enforcement case you mentioned, where it's, okay, I'm here to arrest this. I've got probable cause. Now I've got this. Holy crap, this is good. Like you said, this is everything's laid out in front of me, right? And so that's kind of when we miss the and it goes back to the duck platypus thing. It's like, well, then I don't see it that right here is the threat, and neither one of those in the similarity in those two situations is that the sort of deadly threat was right there in front of your face, and they didn't see it. So.
Yep.
That this is the crux of a lot of these problems where we get into and talk about errors in sense making, but it's the how to see part, right? It's the recognition that this could be, it's likely a duck, but it could be a platypus. So right. What elements would lead me to see that? And then same thing, the opposite. Okay, we've got him. He's in custody. It's no longer a threat. It's like, well, it that's not necessarily true. And so balancing those two things out, I think, is because if you go too far in one direction, you're going to be hyper vigilant. If you go too far in the other direction, you're just going to be completely oblivious to your surroundings, right? So it's how do I go back and forth or stay in that middle area where I can see and handle those things? And that's the heart that's what the whole duck platypus analogy is. It's a comparison. It's an ML MD COA. Is this everything that I expected it to be, or is it not everything I expected it to be? And so the reason why the overarching reason why these things happen is because we are wired this way for it to happen, right? I get a hit of dopamine when I do this, and I'm correct, and I'm correcting this over and over again. So my brain goes, aha, I know this. And it just gets rid of all that minutia. Oh, don't worry about that. I already know where this is going. So it's now pulling you along, right? Rather than you determining the path and where this is going. So your brain, your unconscious brain, your own, thing that's meant to keep you alive and can make all these great decisions and can do all these amazing things is leading you to your death or leading you to a place that isn't good unknowingly, unwittingly in a sense, right? And so we're just, the hook sets in and I follow that and I follow that and ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, right? And that's why we fall into those traps.
Yep.
And so what we kind of are trying to get people to do is go, well, rather than just following along with what your brain, your own self, your own unconscious mind is telling you to do, what's the path you want to create, right? And how do you explore that? Because I may have to poke my head around this corner to see what's up, and then poke my head around this corner to see what's up, and then go, yeah, you know what? We're good. We're good on this one. All right, and that's the essence of time and distance. But you have a lot of people that say, well, you're not always going to have the time. And I say, yeah, you fucking do. Like,
you always have the time.
You actually do. Yeah. You always have the time. And if it's something that's so the simple ones are the obvious ones where it's obvious that you don't have time. Well, then that means that it's such a significant threat or so obvious that it is, or it's so obvious that this is just benign that it's easy. Those are simple problems that anyone can figure out. Like you don't even need a lot of training or experience to see those.
Exactly.
It's all the ones in between that are a little bit more complex where everyone wants to have these different attitudes about it, Greg. And everyone wants to say like, oh, well, this could happen. That could. It's like, well, no, that couldn't. But you guys are saying, well, this could be the platypus. It's like, yeah, but show me, prove to me that it is. Prove to me that this is different than the one that you're going that you're typically used to seeing. And what measures have you put in place to sort of regulate your own response to the situation, to
Yeah.
regulate your own thinking? And I don't mean like response like, okay, step back, do this, draw your weapon, or tactic, techniques, procedure. I mean, how are you thinking about this, and how are you approaching this? Because you're jamming in solutions, and you haven't clearly defined the problem yet. And that's the
Yep.
biggest thing that I see with these situations, Greg. Does that kind of make sense?
No, so it makes too much sense. So I'll tell you this, and this is Brian and I have already had 3 or 4 Zoom calls and a Teams call this morning, and so we jump into this with very little or no thought. We exchange a couple of emails and say, "Hey, here's the topic for today." And I wrote down, if you're a trainer, if you're HR, if you're a copper, courts, corrections, a lawyer, if you work anywhere in any job, get out your yellow pad, because I wrote down in just the last 5 minutes and 30 seconds 7 things that you talked about that are huge that you could turn into training. So first things first, go out and buy yourself a life game. Go to the secondhand store. You don't got to buy the most expensive one. Open it up, throw everything away except that little spinner thing in the center. Break that off of the game and take it with you to work. And no matter what you do at work, what I want you to do, I want you to spin that. And whatever number that lands on corresponds to a card that you've created with a conundrum, with a problem, with the situation, mental health issue at work, at home, sucking chest wound while you're driving down the freeway, whatever it is that you're likely to encounter in your job. I don't know your job. You know your job. So you write down some of those things and have basic and intermediate and advanced things. And you know what? Every once in a while, just spin that dial. That's a lot like life. And if you have an answer to those things that are coming up and it's just theoretical, you got to work a little harder. Well, I bought Shelly a gun for Christmas, let's say. Well, you know what else I bought with her? I bought the proper holster, I bought some range time, and I bought a first aid kit for her and the person that she shoots. Okay, well, maybe that's the way I think. You get it? Because that's a plan, and plans work. And so if I do the life game, that offsets what I got to talk about. Look, probable cause never diminishes. We have boobs that are still out there in our industry, and I love some of them, but they're boobs because they're saying, well, you can't control time. Yeah, you can. If you don't go, you're controlling time. If you put it in reverse, you're controlling time. If you make a mistake and shoot first and kill an unarmed guy, you're controlling the time. So the idea is, do you want to control time, or do you want to have time control you? Stop it for a minute, because what you're doing is you're teaching coppers the wrong way. You're teaching people that, oh, in some instances, you just got to flip the tire and climb the rope and just gun it out. Okay, but those are so few and far between as to be remarkable. And you're shooting 9 times out of 10, and you're not thinking 1 time out of 10. That balance. Prim did a good LinkedIn on it. Look up Greg Prim LinkedIn this week. He did a great story on that, folks. So what does that lead us to? I'm in an ambush in Iraq, Brian, and the idea is that I think through the ambush and I write down some things because a person died in the ambush, and it was so stupid because we were teaching probably 600 feet away, maybe 1,000 feet away from where the ambush attack occurred. We heard the gunfire went out. Soldier that's doing gate guard with a trusted partner said, hey, I want to get a photo. And the guy goes, yeah, we can get a photo. And he goes, hey, step back. No, step back further. No, we want to get the gate. And then ends up the coalition member shoots the American soldier and kills him by getting him to pull away from his partners far enough that after he shot him, he could run away. What is that? Duck platypus 101. What is that? Outrunning our headlights. And I felt the same way when I read the story, back to your point on dopamine, about the medical call. That paramedic had done 10 calls that day, 15 calls that day. And guess what? He had the dopamine dump every single time that he went out to help somebody. He wanted to be Hippocratic, first do no harm, and help. He didn't want to go, hey, this is the lady that might stab me to death. But you know what? That's on that life spin. You got to spin that son of a bitch. And every once in a while, picture yourself surrounded by gosh damn yellow evidence tape, the tape that says police line don't cross. And this would have been a perfect situation where, based on the situation, perhaps something was different. We never know. We can't interview him, and the woman's not going to tell us. But the idea is that what was in his head at that time and place is, woman on the freeway needs our help. I'm here, and she's bleeding. We have to slow the clock down, Brian. We have to take a look at the situation and go, in this instance, if it's drugs or mental health, do I need to do a cursory search for offensive weapons before I begin? Should I have somebody else with me? And somebody right now is going, well, you would have never known that. If he worked on the fucking job for a day, he would have known that, heard that, saw it, or been trained in that. Now, am I blaming the death? Am I victim blaming this? No, I feel shitty that he died, and she should go to the electric chair of the firing squad. But the idea is I can't turn back time and imagine how important it would have been if that person would have not outrun their headlights on that day. One thing could have changed everything, Brian. So let's go to that final gosh damn thing. When you talk about those guys getting safer the further they were in the police station, it's exactly what happened to their brain. We used to call that on the road the happy head. You know, the guy's in there, he's now booked in processing, who's going to die? Well, I'll tell you, the Warren Police Station in Warren, Michigan is named after somebody that's going to die when at the last second somebody goes Yahtzee and pulls a gun out of their crotch. The idea is that you and I have both been on these same incidents, and I don't want to give you PTS, but both of us have been at a fire alarm in a hotel where nobody did shit. Both of us have been in a fire alarm in a gosh damn university setting where nobody did shit. Nobody even got up to check. And I was at a fire alarm in an airport that you'll remember that I videotaped the entire, whatever you call it on a phone now. I guess it's not videotape. I taped the son of a, it's not taped. I recorded it. No,
Recorded.
whatever.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I don't know what the
Captured.
word is, right? I captured it. Okay, I captured a lot of things, but I captured that entire thing, and you saw everybody was saying, "Run for an exit. This is an actual fire. This is not a drill." And nobody even got up from the Starbucks. Nobody got up from their chair. So, Brian, we fail to consider these. Then we go to training, and sometimes training goes over. Oh my God, do the body drag, throw the flashbang, do the shooting. What we're talking about is an exercise in psychology and sociology and in pathology of an incident. Yeah.
So we cover that in other episodes about the more I'm exposed to something, the less likely I am to see it, and or the every time who even looks when a car alarm goes off anymore, you know what I mean, because we hear that stuff, or there's sirens like you said. But my biggest, here's what fascinates and interests me, Brian. We go third person here, right? Always, which is why a part of the reason why I'm in this line of work, in a sense.
Yeah.
The deepest thing that I am just so utterly fascinated by is how humans just completely arbitrarily attribute value to things.
Yeah.
And meaning like this example of this, because this plays right into training, how we respond and how things change, right? We do like a breakdown or an after action of an incident or a thing, and then we just randomly pick something in there that that we're familiar with, that we think we can control, and say, that's the problem. If only we had better optics on our weapons, if only we had better this, if we had that, or if we had this technology that could do this. Yep. And we're just so entrenched in that way of thinking, because but we do that with everything. Oh, you know what? I didn't wash my underwear and we won the big game. It's because I didn't wash my underwear
again.
I mean, that sounds stupid, but that's how I'm telling you. This is how everyone thinks. All of us, me, you, everyone. Like, we just arbitrarily say, "Well, I think it's because of this," and then if we get enough people to agree with it, that's what we do. And it's like, wait, what? How did you arrive at this point that this is the thing we need to address? Because maybe there's 1,000 issues or contributing factors to a situation, and you chose these as, well, now we have to write this policy to do that. And it's like, well, hang on, like, what were all the things that played into this, and why did this person get here? And then we come up with a new term for something, and then it's because of that. And it's like, what we're conflating issues, and we're not going to the underlying issues with all of these are these errors in sense making. I didn't see something that I was supposed to see. I didn't recognize this when I should have. I failed here. But these are sort of cognitive problems. These are these are principles that you can align and follow to solve for X in any situation. So we get so hyper focused on this is the we get so focused on well what's the best decision. It's like, well, fuck, it depends on what the context is. It's like, well, each one is different. So but even though each one of these things are different, there's underlying things that occur in all of them, right?
Exactly.
You know, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a parent who misses their kid is suddenly changing behavior because it's slowly over time, like you miss this and you should have seen this coming, but you didn't. So it's the school's fault, or it's the gun's fault, or it's like no. Hang on. Like I understand this is difficult. Maybe you don't know how to do it, but these are all the things that went into this problem. So
Right.
how do we want to address that with a solution? That's going to get really complicated sometimes, like, especially if you're talking about like a policy or you know a law or something like that. That's going to get complex because that's the application of it. But just to determine what can and cannot be done, what's in your control and what's outside of your control, that's where you, to me, that's where you start. So what, and this is just back to what I first started this kind of part of the dialogue with is this is what fascinates and interests me so much,
Yep.
because
That's why you did this.
to me there's so many things that people just attribute value to, and I'm like, that has fuck all nothing to do with anything,
Let me
and you
go there.
can't get them out. And these are smart,
Yep.
reasonable people, and we all do this.
Very
Like, I do
smart
that too
people.
and stuff. We all
Yep.
do this stuff. Oh, it must be because of that. Oh, it's because of this. It's like, oh, it's like, well, how do you know that? Can you prove to me that, you know, if you had known that, or if you had this
It
different
would have changed
tool
anything.
or
Yeah.
tactic, it would have changed the outcome? Because it would, if you had that already, well, it would have changed your approach. So it would have been a different outcome, but maybe that outcome might be worse.
Brian, if you brought that up in court, they would say cause for speculation, Your Honor. It would be an objection. So if you can't use it in court, then you can't use it in the realm of science. So I will make Brian's point, which he made very succinctly, but I'll make it by turning the Hoberman 3/4 of a turn and looking through the orange side. So, you know, if you're a longtime listener, if you're first time and did any research whatsoever, that Brian and I used to take the time to break down videos. And we haven't done one in a long time. And we do it in class still. But the difference is between us and everybody else out there that breaks down a video, they're all going to tell you what everybody did wrong and suggest tactics and training. Okay. What we do is we don't give a shit about what happened at X on the bubble. We say, look at all these pre event indications that went on that were missed and look at how that could have informed what happens later. So we don't show the stabbing or the shooting or the crash or anything because we don't care, frankly, about that. There's somebody out there making money selling you shit to fix that. But what we do is we take the tape and we break down. Like every day on LinkedIn, I'm inundated, and I probably get, I would say reasonably 5 or 6 requests where somebody says, "Hey, have you taken a look at this video? What do you think?" And I won't even answer them anymore because what I see is frippery. I see somebody going, "Well, when this agent steps up here, or when the cop moves this way to the left, notice the shadow on the back of the." That's all horse shit. That's all speculation. You don't know. You weren't there. You don't have the eyeball witness. But can we use it for training? Yes. We can say, how was it that this person stood behind this planter with a gun for 40 minutes before you loaded up this guy in a limousine and nobody saw him there? How did that happen? That's called dead space, folks. That's called, using negative space. You're going to use a UAV, use a thermal. There's answers to every one of these things. But what we do is we go there and we speculate on the moment of contact and say, look at how out of control this guy. Look, this guy took a taser, then he took a spray, then he did this. This is why you need training. No, you need to anticipate this snowflake is somehow different than all the other snowflakes that fell on my tongue. And therefore, I'm going to have to ramp it up, ramp it down, back it up, get more people. The idea is the gift of time and distance means outthinking a cunning opponent. And if you don't, then you're going to be, look, if you're within arm's reach, I got sued by the White Aryan Resistance because I had a program called Within Arm's Reach, Go to War. And it was for kids and females back in the day in Detroit. And the idea, and think, so the Klan won that one, Brian. But think about this. The idea was that if I can touch you, I can kill you. So you've got to stay outside of that span. If you think of nothing more today than that, if you think that road rage never ends well, if you think that if I don't check my fuel gauge, my car will run out of fuel, and if I don't check the air in my tires, I'm going to get a blowout when I need the car to flee the gosh damn axe wielding guy at the lake. Okay, those are things that you should do. And we're back to spinning that gosh damn life wheel, Brian. How many people do you know do that? What we face is people that go, well, I'll tell you what, when somebody's kneeling on your throat and's got a knife to your eye, Brian, come on. We've had more car alarms and fire alarms than we've had people kneeling on our neck and trying to stab us. And yes, those things happen. But guess what? You're spending so much time preparing for this item that may never occur in your entire life, and none on saying, what would happen just before that person knocked me down? What would happen to put me on the ground in that situation, and how could I avoid those things? I'm telling you what, I side for that. I side for the gift of time and distance and everything. Is there going to be the one day you step on your porch and get hit by an asteroid? Yeah. But you know what? There's some things out of our control. But time and distance aren't out of our control. Cover is not out of our control.
Let me kind of give you an example of how I think where the errors occur in a sense, right? So whether it's a police officer pulling someone over, or you look at like the after action review or a witness statement or something, when it could be a school shooter, whatever, when someone goes, I always thought that kid was this, but I didn't, or, I thought something seemed off, but I didn't want to say anything, or, hey, I thought something was off, or I saw this thing. So what we would say, okay, you were picking up on these incongruent signals. You knew it didn't fit a baseline. You knew there was something there. You didn't know what it was. You'd never seen that before. You don't have experience or something. But I think people don't spend enough time in that space of not knowing. What I noticed too is like I'm very comfortable not having all the information, not knowing. Like you sort of have to be uncomfortable going, fuck, I don't know. We got to the point where I don't know. And what I mean is it allows you to continue to gather information and hypothesis test. Okay, there's something off here, clearly, right? Is there something we got this, whether it's a traffic stop or whatever. Okay, but and this is what I mean by just following along with your brain. That unconscious brain it wants the answer. It's forcing you to an outcome, to something. And so it will fill things in to fit the answer that it already came up with. I mean, it's heuristics, how it does. Oh, cognitively close enough. This is what that means, right? Well, that's the central issue is if I don't say, well, okay, this is incongruent. Let me go find out why. Okay, this part is still incongruent. Let me find out why. Hey, this hasn't fallen back down into the level of just another thing that I'm going to do yet. I'm still continuing to get these incongruent signals. And then over time, as those continue to escalate and build, whether or not they escalate, you just continue to see them. It's like this is the thing that is going to be bad. Like otherwise it would have fallen back down. Something you're because you have a lot of great just intuitive decision-making skills. You have a lot of experience as a human. So when you got that gut instinct, always people go like, okay, well, yeah, we wouldn't be alive. Right. So it's like, so you're telling, because I've had it where someone's like, well, so you're telling me, look, I know what this is. I trust my gut. It's like, yes. You should always trust your gut, but you can't be sure of what the answer is. You can't be sure of the solution. You can be absolutely sure that you are seeing something that's incongruent and it doesn't make sense, and you might not be able to find out. You might not know why. So that's my point, is like, well, stay there then. Figure out, well, why is this an incongruent signal? Why do I feel this way? What is it about the situation? And that goes back to us going, well, what's typical? All right, so your brain says, I know this is typical. I got a gut feeling that this isn't typical, because it knows, it has a comparison that it's using. So it's going, okay, well, continue. If you don't know the incongruent part, then stick with what's typical. What should you expect to see? If everything is normal and this is going to be a routine thing and nothing is going to happen that's out of the ordinary, what else would you expect to see? And then you can compare your future observations and get it. And then we call that just updating the baseline of what that is. But that mental process is not, it's not calorie intensive. Like you know what I'm saying? Especially when you practice it but I mean, it doesn't take much, because you often either, it's great to know a lot, but it's also the next best step is knowing what you don't know is a huge step forward.
So
go ahead.
No. Listen, preaching to the choir on this one, Brian, but I don't know. Everybody at home, I don't know. I'm asking Brian, rhetorically, of course, isn't that an aspect of being uncomfortable? See, so when we talk about, get
Yeah,
comfortable being
that's a good
uncomfortable,
point.
the idea is that I don't feel comfortable because I'm reading something incongruent in my baseline. And so Brian used the term typical. Well, what's the antithesis of typical? Well, it's anomalous. It's something that sticks above or below the baseline or a bolo. And your brain will make order out of chaos with or without you. Which would you rather it be? Think of that for just a second. So let's talk Hangover Psych 101 because it's the timeline that Brian's talking about. And many of you, if you're still listening, are probably drinking once in a while. So you get really shit-faced and you shouldn't have. And so all of a sudden you got to be at the big business meeting or the kid's soccer game or whatever else, your divorce proceedings. Sorry, Brian. Whatever else it's going to be. And then you've drank too much. And so you're drunk still when you wake up and you go, okay, this hangover is so bad, it's going to be with me all day. And I know that I'm going to vomit because my body can't process all of this, metabolize all of this alcohol. I'm just not sure when it's going to be. So then you got to do the hard math. Should I get up and do it right now so I get it out of the way? Or should I mope around all day long? Or should I take a homeopathic cure? Or should I? That's what we're doing in police work. That's what we're doing in HR. We're going, look, this is going to be a shitty outcome. And we all know it's going to be a shitty outcome. But how can we push it further down the line? And my thing is don't rip the Band-Aid off fast. The idea is that if you get used to rehearsing and practicing and hypothesizing, I loved your term hypothesis testing again, what might happen in situations, then you'll simply come up to gating mechanisms. Most likely course of action, that person standing next to my car is just in the shade of my car and smoking or vaping. Or that person could be a violent, dangerous felon that's going to do a carjacking. What would I need to see to confirm my suspicion? By adding a few seconds from a position of cover and just maintaining your observation, then you're going to know that. And you're saying, yeah, but I'm a cop. I got to hurry to the scene. That's why we got the red and blues. That's why we got the siren. No, because what you're doing then is you're creating an inevitability because the slope gets slipperier, not easier when you get to the scene, especially if it's something like a mental health issue. Look, the family's dealt with this person for years, and you're going to solve it in seconds when you get on the scene? No, they called you because it's out of their control. But what did you relegate it to, Brian? Well, get out of the way. I'll handle it from here. Yeah, okay. You see, what we do sometimes is we create a situation where we think we have all the answers. And I'll go back thousands of years all the way to yesterday and tell you the best scientists say, always question your hypothesis. Always come into the room saying that I'm the dumbest person here and I don't know. You'll learn more and you won't make those catastrophic errors. And here, Brian, when we talk about law enforcement, we're talking about a catastrophic error can kill you or me or a bus full of kids on their way to the museum. And that's unacceptable.
Yeah, and sorry, we got Bailey just joined me in the studio here. She's going to curl up in the corner there in her spot.
That's great.
The dog here.
That's why I got the door open because John's too. John's is like, it's been too long.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of being the dumbest person in the room, let me speak from that perspective. No, this is we're constantly being thrust into situations that are already in progress, and that's not necessarily a police call. I mean, that's like I walk into my daughter's room and she's doing something. Okay, there's something going on here, and I'm the new thing that is entering the scene. So I'm going to have an effect on that. And
You're
if I don't have
whether you want to be or not, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Everything interacts with each other. You change the outcome. You bump into something. A little bit of you stays on that. A little bit of that stays on you. Right? This is basic physics, right? So if I walk in and what did you call
it?
Hostile reproduction.
No, toxic.
That's the one I got to go.
Reproduction.
Toxic.
I think we call that one great.
That's sexual assault. Yeah. So toxic is some. is when it's consensual and still not a good thing.
Not a good thing for
So,
either party.
but back to what I was saying. So if I look at everything as an interaction
Yes.
and how I'm interacting with this event that is in motion or a person that's in motion, like it kind of helps me see, well, if that thing is in motion, it came from somewhere and it's
Yes.
going somewhere. So how did my interaction with this either change the outcome, change the direction of where it's going? I can't change where it came from, right? But getting an understanding to know whether if I'm, crossing a street and there's cars coming, right? Is that vehicle coming at 20 miles an hour and I've got time to cross the street, or is it coming at 75 and it's going to plow into me because it's going too fast, right? That's how it is. I can look at that and make a fair assessment or a judgment just based on my knowledge and experience and say, okay,
Yeah.
this likely came from somewhere. I don't necessarily know where, but it has a start point, and then there's an end point somewhere with the situation, or a continuation or a new place that it's going. So when I come in, how do I change that outcome? Or just right off the bat, just me interacting with the situation. And gets back to why I always say, like, you can influence the outcome of every situation you're in, no matter how dire it is. Like, no matter what little control you have, you still influence the situation that you're in.
Amen.
So I think going into that, knowing about that with the right mindset of looking at it and how to do that with the different tools, like the stuff that we talk about, and know my limiting cognitive factors of what's going to get in my way, and which are the same limiting cognitive factors of the person I'm interacting with. They're playing by the same set of human behavior rules that you are, maybe not
are.
playing by the same laws or values or ethics, but the physics is physics, and I know there's a lot we still don't understand about it, but there's rules that we do understand, right? And there's human behavior, and there's still a lot we don't understand about it. But there are rules, especially the more defined that context and situation is, the easier it is to determine likely outcomes and what's going to happen. So you don't have to go in with, well, anything could happen, or you know what, we don't have the time.
Listen to what you just said, and everybody that's out there, write that down. The more extreme the circumstances, the easier it is to come to the outcome, because it becomes inevitable or binary. Okay.
Yes.
It decides for you rather than you having to worry about those things. And that can, so may I depose you for a minute, because you brought up a couple of great points there, and I think people at home might not have caught up at your speed. So, Brian, since we've worked together, do you know of, have you read about, or have I sent you articles on different people, paramedics, being killed by the person they were treating?
Yes.
At least 5 or 6 times that I know, that I've sent you those articles, where coming out of
much more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say that I would testify to at least 5 or 6 above the one that we're talking about today. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
So in that same period of time, would it be a fair assessment to say that you and I have discussed train deaths where people got hit by a train, whether they were standing or walking or driving, and killed?
About 1,000 people die every year in the United States being hit by a train.
And I would say that you and I personally have talked about probably 35 to 50 of those incidents that I would swear to that that's accurate. Would you agree? Okay.
Yes.
So let's use the train example for just a second. Trains run on a track, and trains create turbulence and rely on friction. If you're not thinking and you look, you can underestimate a train and it immediately becomes a duck. And I got plenty of time to get across this chariot wheel track. You know, the width of the chariot wheels, or where we get the distance between the two rails on the train. That's for the thinkers in the group. I can get across that 4 feet in no time at all. And guess what happens, Brian? You're hooked, you're roped, because it was a platypus the entire time, with its leading with its spurs, and you're going to get hooked and you're going to get bit. And it's like a scorpion. Not all of them will kill you, but one of them will. It's like a snake. Not all of them will kill you, but one of them will. And guess what? When your luck runs out, then you're in a effing trick bag, right back to spinning that life wheel. So if we use that train, which is always full of turbulence and friction, even when it's on a good heading, even when it's doing a good thing, then that's got to slow your roll when you're taking a look and go, look, I don't want to outrun my headlights. So let me pump the brake once in a while to make sure I know what's going on here. I remember being on a shooting at the side of a freeway. Am I lying? And a person looks at me and comes up and goes, "What can I do?" And I said, "Hey, do you understand that this is a cop? It is a fatal shooting, and the suspect is down." Because the young person didn't. They didn't understand the gravity of the situation, Brian. So therefore, they were ready to run in, but they weren't sure, and the house was already on fire. You get where I'm going?
So wait, with your train analogy, literally just the other day. So I'm driving the insurgent to school in the morning, and we're behind a school bus, right? And it comes to the complete stop right before the train tracks, and
Sure.
opens the they open the door, and the insurgent, she'd never seen that happen before like that, like, and she's like, why is that, like, what's going on? Because she's observant. She's like, what's this? What is the bus driver going to take off? Are they kicking someone off the bus or something? Like, what's going on here?
That's hilarious.
Right? And
What
I
an
was
inquisitive
like,
mind.
no. And I'm like, no. I go, do you know a lot of people get hit by trains and stuff? She's like, oh yeah. I was like, no, we were just having this conversation this week. I was like 1,000 people in the United States get hit by a train. And she's like, okay, well, yeah. I go, yeah, but I go, think about it. The train is on a track. You know where it's going. And she's like, oh yeah, that's weird. How does that even happen? And I go, well,
Exactly.
it does. But I go, so every school bus that is required by law, when they come to train tracks, they have to stop, come to a full complete stop. The driver has to open the door. He has to look down the tracks and look the other way to ensure. And she's like, well, that seems like a lot. And I was like, yes. And as long as they do that every single time, they will never get hit by that train. And she's like, wow, I had no idea. And so your train analogy is perfect,
That's
because
so cool.
she got it right away. Because I'm like, well, think about that. That's different than a car accident. She's like, well, why? I was like, well, a car accident, cars can hit each other. I go, a train is on the track. And I just saw this smile and the light bulb go on. And like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
she
You
almost
knew.
went like, how could you possibly get hit by a train when it's on the, she immediately got it, was like,
That's
how
so
dumb would you have
wonderful.
to be? And I was like, well, Harvey, it's not about being dumb. I go,
It's
certain
being
things
fooled.
happen and they're just, yeah.
Listen, science can be tricky. So, Brian, you remember growing up as a kid, before stepping off the curb, the safety patrol would tell you stop, look, listen. Okay. The idea was you also had to look both ways, remember? And you also want to do it more than one time. It's like leadoff hitter at an intersection. When the light goes green, you don't hit the gas. You look around
Yeah.
because that one person on the phone is still coming. They didn't notice the light turned red. If we, everybody listening to the sound of my voice, if we agree that stop, look, listen is a good thing, and that stopping before a railroad track and looking both ways, then why do we fight the urge to run straight to the scene, with gay abandon and not even think about the situation that's going to be facing us, thinking that the faster we get there, the better it's going to be for us? No, you have to look, turbidity and turbulence and friction are in every meeting. And sometimes it can turn to good things, a home run off your bat. But sometimes it can turn to bad things, your skull getting crushed by a bat. You got to consider that when you're doing your training. So, any instructor that's out there going, oh, they oversimplify, one, kiss my ass, the fattest part. And two, take a look at what we're talking about. We're talking about from the beginning of the first time you think about becoming a cop or HR or a teacher or any of those other stuff. You better be training, just like Brian is with the insurgent. You better be training people to outthink a cunning opponent. Here, the cunning opponent is a giant lumbering train that's moving so slow, but it still fools 1,000 people a year. Think about that. Take a minute and think about that. There's your on-duty roll call for tomorrow, Brian.
Yeah, so this is to the duck, platypus, and headlight example, is that's one. I mean, how many times you said, hey, when someone's like, "Well, what do you guys do?" and you go, "Oh, we're selling flashlights," right? We're
That's it,
looking
baby.
around in the box of good ideas that we're not thinking outside the box. We're selling a flashlight for people to look around inside that box. There's a lot of good ideas in there, and then the duck platypus is just that sort of memory emotion link. It's a way for me to recall or understand, like, hey, is it a duck or is it a platypus, and how can I prove it? And these aren't simple things. We
If
talk
there were,
about them
people
in
wouldn't
a simple
die.
manner.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, that, and and the duck platypus one is, you could go on and give all kinds of different and you use it for a number of different reasons. They're actually, a duck and a platypus is a great example, Greg, of something called convergent evolution. That's
Exactly.
where unrelated species evolve similar traits due to environmental pressures. So if
Now, who's the smartest
biology
guy
and
and the dumbest
Darwin.
guy in the room?
Well,
Woo-hoo.
but it goes back to if biology and Darwin said that this is how things evolve, and you know what, sometimes some unrelated species are going to evolve similar traits due to the environmental pressures, due to the
Exactly.
situation that you're in over time, right? It's just it's another way
So
to
true.
look at it. But the balance there is always. Am I, is this what it seems to be? Is it not what it seems to be? Did I miss
Yep.
something? And that sort of questioning, I think some people kind of overdo it, right? There's the overthinkers, the people who can't make a decision, who are
Sure.
trying to come up with too much. And I think what adds to that is that idea of, well, you don't have enough time, or you don't have all the information, or you got to have this, or it's we got to do something now, and you rarely ever do, and when you do, it's obvious. And I see that stuff out there. I saw someone literally wrote an article saying, well, sometimes you just don't have the time, and it's like, well, yeah, if that's the way you think, if that's the
Then
way
you're
you
right.
look at
You
things,
you
then
are
you're
going
right.
to
You
you
are.
are going to fulfill that
And
prophecy.
and
Exactly.
that leads to missing things that are all of those prevent indicators, and that type of thinking leads to binary decision making. Well, it's him or me. It's like, oh, okay, well, there's a few options in between there, but you're going right to that. Okay, so that's what forces that, and you're just following your brain along that track. You're following that unconscious roadmap when you can make your own roadmap. And maybe it's not going to work out exactly the route you want it to be, right? Because it's going to change, and I'm going to update my hypothesis
Yep.
over time, and I'm going to update based on, oh, there's new traffic conditions, I'm going to take this route instead. Oh, there's a construction going on over there, so you know what, I'm going to jump over to this street instead, right? That's what we're talking about, is rather than just following the fucking GPS and following
Exactly.
what the Google Maps tells you. Like, yes, it's right a lot of the time, but it doesn't know everything that you know. It doesn't have the conscious ability to process that incoming information and question it. So it just gives you the answer, and that's what your brain does. It just goes, here, just go here, make a left. It's where you go, and the time and distance factor is where that gets. I don't know. It changes the calculus a little bit, if that makes sense.
I think that coppers, if you're our copper on the call, and especially if you're a boss, think about the way NTSB conducts investigations, and look back, and you'll see that there's
Yeah.
trends. And if you follow the trends, you'll follow the danger signs. So what we're talking about, prevent indications that would show a reasonable person that shit's about to go sideways. The other thing is to take a page from Scott Mann's great book about No One's Coming to Save You. Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, dear friend, great guy. I haven't seen you since Lewis McCord. But I would ask Brian, what was the name of the pilot on the Hudson? What was that
Sully.
guy's name in a church down in Texas? Okay, you know
Yeah.
what we keep thinking,
Yeah.
Brian, because we're humans. We keep thinking that's all we got to do is have that guy there or be that guy. What I'll do is I'll
Yeah.
raise my stakes to be at the level of that. No one's coming to save you. You're all you got. So you got to outthink that cunning enemy. And to do that, Brian, you got to give yourself that gift of time and distance, buddy.
Yeah. And well, the NTSB one is a great one, because they go through everything, they see how it happened, what were the contributing factors, and
Yep.
look at all the data, and then they go, and even when it comes down to, oh, it was pilot error, they don't just go, okay, it was pilot error. They go, okay,
Nope.
well, what error did they make and why?
Exactly.
And then they
Cough
find out,
medicine,
like, oh, you
nosebleed.
know what,
Exactly.
or it was, hey, that pilot actually was making the right choice, but he
Yep.
was making it based on incomplete information because of
Exactly.
this other thing that occurred.
Yep.
So to
Yep.
them, it was the right decision. However, if they had known this thing, or if they had seen that, or if they
Yep.
had heard this radio transmission, they wouldn't have done that. But there
Totally
was a
agree.
hot mic at that time, and so, I mean,
360, baby.
this is how
They
things
look at
are.
everything. Yeah. Yeah. I totally
So
agree.
okay,
That's a whole
well,
episode.
let's
We should bring Sean on for that one. So I only got.
let's
I know you want
yeah,
to round the wagons. I only got one more shout out if I can throw it on this episode before
you
people start
can.
clearing out. Shout out to Force Science, Bill Lewinsky, Dr. Bill stepped aside, and Brian Baxter from Texas is the new CEO. Brian Marin and I both know Brian Baxter from his body of work. We both commented on his LinkedIn post before. Seems like a great level-headed, experienced vet and former copper. So congratulations to Baxter. Good thinking for Bill to step aside and do other things. And it looks to me like, we've had a long relationship with Force Science, love-hate relationship maybe sometimes, but this is a great thing for them. So congratulations, heartfelt congratulations to Brian Baxter.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Yeah, like they
So
listen to
yeah,
us.
we
I'm sorry.
oh,
I listen to us, Brian, and
so,
I listen to them, but I doubt they
some
spend a lot of time listening to us.
well, I I don't know about that, but so we talked about a lot here, and the duck platypus. Is it a duck? Is it a platypus? And
Yep.
prove it. And then the headlights, man, are they on? Am I outrunning
Gosh,
them?
and those
I
are
mean,
so
these are
simple
just
too,
simple
Brian, that you
ways
can
to look
share
at
with
it.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
that's why we use those simple analogies, or I guess it would be a metaphor. Well, no, it'd be an analogy. I
A
keep getting
simile.
those mixed up sometimes.
I just make it
Yeah,
up when I
well,
don't
it's
know
not a
it.
simile. It's not a. Well,
A
we
simile.
all know
Isn't
that,
that
Greg.
another name for a
We,
monkey? Well, so
all right. Well,
don't start
thanks
there.
everyone for tuning in. Don't forget that we do have more stuff on the Patreon site, and thank you. Shout out to our Patreon subscribers giving us good
Toxic
stuff. You can
reproduction.
always reach out to us. Maybe we should do an episode on toxic
We
reproduction.
do that on
Can we
Patreon. I
coin
bet
that
we'd be
term?
flooded. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good one. But yeah, always reach out to us and give us some anything you want us to cover or talk about or some questions. We're more than happy to answer them. Of course, our Patreon subscribers, you get we answer you right away. If
Yep.
you're reaching out as a fan, it might take me a little bit to get back to you depending on the workload during that week. But yeah, I will answer it. So workload. That's the weekend
That's
load,
it.
Greg. The
Yeah.
drinking is the
Let's
week
not
load.
start talking about loads.
So, all right. Well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much, and don't forget that training changes behavior.